All right, Michael, how are you?
Pretty good. Long time no see, right?
Yeah, long time no see. I think last time we did this was in August, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been
Yeah.
like over 6 months. Um, so yeah, crazy topic, I suppose. Indonesian elections. But
Yeah. I figure you know more about it, right? Since
yeah,
you're
yeah.
over there.
Actually, let me just give some context to the people. So I'm actually in Indonesia right now. And you're in the United States, Maryland, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's true.
So you actually just you told me that you're planning on moving back to Indonesia after 13 years in the States, right? This year.
Yeah, it's around, and actually just in a few months, like maybe 2 months, 3 months. It depends on how things go, but that's the
Are
plan.
we,
Yeah.
are we talking about a permanent move back or
I mean, um, Hopefully it's permanent, but like right now I'm just seeing the situation since it's been what I think it's been 10 years since I actually lived there, so the situation might be like completely different, but hopefully it's gonna be permanent, but who knows, how the
10
future
years
is gonna
isn't
be.
10 years isn't that bad, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's right now.
Are you still gonna vote
Very
in the wait, when is the US elections? So you're not actually gonna be there.
September, I think.
Yeah,
It's usually September. I don't. I think it's September. Yeah,
so you're gonna skip on the US elections then.
yeah, probably. Yeah.
Right, right. Have you been paying much attention on the recent Indonesian elections though?
um. I know about like who's like the candidates and but like who's winning or I think I don't know for sure. I don't really know the like the details or the really
Right,
inside stuff about it. So
right.
hopefully you'll know more about it.
Yeah, I look forward to enlightening you on some things actually. Um, what actually you wrote something in your latest article on
Yes.
Indonesian American, and you actually what surprised me was you actually stated who you would vote for. I mean, you're not a citizen, you're not an Indonesian citizen anymore, right? But if you were,
No,
you
no.
actually stated, which is kind of
Yeah.
a bold move. So yeah,
Yeah,
tell everyone who you would. Don't worry, no one's gonna shoot you. No one's watching this. So who you're gonna vote for if you were if you had still had your Indonesian citizenship? All right, it's kind of a bad
yeah,
internet connection.
like I said, but for me, promising guy so far, in my opinion, it's like, okay, so actually this guy actually who
Hang on, Mike.
cares
Sorry,
about the,
sorry. I think you got to repeat that. I think the connection was a bit crappy just now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I said, I think, Prabo, he's the most promising one out of the
Okay.
three.
All
Yeah,
right.
in my opinion.
Right.
He sounds like the guy who cares about the country the most. Like at least he wants to make the country great, which is like because Indonesia is like what a
Isn't
country
that
with
kind of similar to Make America Great Again?
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I say he's like I think I wrote in my article, right? He's like kind of like Trump in some ways, and
Especially, yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
and yeah, I think and yeah, and you said you don't disagree with that, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that. But actually, what's funny when I read your article is that you describe Prabowo as a right-wing populist, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Part of the right-wing populist, and I was wondering why that's a good thing for you.
Oh,
Why
okay.
right-wing populism is attractive somehow for you.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, because like, well, the way I put it is this: like a right wing is like something is basically conservative, right? So you do
Yeah,
want to conserve about the country. Usually, the left wing usually are more like
progressive.
internationalist. They're more like progressive. So they're like, oh, let's just, move towards something. And a lot of times they don't really know what they want to move to. And especially in Indonesia and like third world countries, left wing means like, oh, we want to be more like, I don't know, like the rest of the world. We want to be like America, right? Or at least we want to be like America currently, which is a
Mm,
very left wing country.
mm,
And like but at least with the right wing, it's like, okay, we want Indonesia to be our own country. We don't want to be like America, but like brown, or America, but like tropical, It's like,
so you think right-wing is conservatism? What about the populism part? Do you have
well,
any concerns with that, or
I mean, I'm not in love with the whole populism thing per se, but I do feel like at least like a lot of case, at least recent, you know, right now it's like populism simply means, okay, we care about like the conditions of the normal people instead of like the elites, I guess, so to speak, which is, well, I don't know if you've been paying attention to like the elites in like America and Europe, but it's like they're not particularly admirable people, they're like, at least that's how I see it.
yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Not to be self-congratulatory or anything, but I just very recently wrote something about the rise of populism. Um,
Mm.
it was inspired by your parallels between Prabowo and Trump. Both
Okay.
are right-wing populists, and I actually said it's kind of amazing that these two billionaires born in privileged families with military backgrounds, with highly questionable criminal backgrounds, are able
Mhm.
to synchronize themselves within the hearts and minds of many ordinary
Mhm.
average Joes within Indonesia.
Yep.
It's kind of
Mhm.
ironic, right?
Yep.
These billionaire military background, criminal questionably criminal background are able to do that. Um, I'm not sure if that. Well, let me just say
Yeah.
it's very ironic and maybe kind of concerning. Also,
Mhm.
um, it's
I mean, I think it's like yeah, historically, that's the thing too. Like, you know, like I think, like, want to go Roman Empire. I think Caesar was kind of like that too. It's like, I don't know, he was rich per se, but he would come from a like really old family kind of thing, and then
aristocratic
he ended up
background.
fighting for the like common people. Yeah, so it's like, I think it's a pattern in history. It's like where like you get this like rich guy who fight for the
Exactly
downtrodden, because like
yeah,
who's gonna fight for them? Like if you're poor, you can't fight for anyone. Maybe yourself.
yeah, that archetype seems to occur again and again. And not to be too brash or anything, but I mean, this is a political conversation. There's no polite way to discuss these things, I guess, but it's sort of a Hitler-like vibe to me.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
someone in the
If you want
elite.
to go there,
Exactly. I'm going there. I'm going to dark places, bro, today.
go ahead.
Elite this elite member massaging the anger of the populace. It's like there's nothing more I guess, vibrant. There's nothing more powerful than anger, the emotion of anger, right? Because it can change so much, it can move so much. There's a lot of energy back there. One thing that we know, in you were talking about elitism, the wealth inequality is just getting worse and worse and worse. It's getting ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. It's like insulting, how human society has just wealth has just spread so unequally, and no wonder that there is this anger from the majority of the population, and it's history is kind of repeating itself. Of course, part of the super elite is going to take advantage of that anger to bring themselves to power. And yeah, it's the whole thing is like a very Hitler-like vibe to it.
Yeah, I mean, so it reminds me. So how is it like in Indonesia? Because for me, like at least in America, it's like, because it's not looking good. It's like there's a lot of like
To say the
well, like a
least,
lot of
it's not
people,
looking good.
you have problem getting work, right? And then it's like, and it seems like the people at the higher up seems like, especially, like the white people, like, they feel like they're being like persecuted. And to be fair, I think they are being persecuted because that's why you got all this like, diversity, which is like they say, oh, we're gonna try to like make things fair for like black people and the colored people. But what's happening is that they're favoring them, and then like the white people, especially white men, right? Because women is also part of the minorities, so
Part of the oppressed,
so
historically
yeah,
oppressed,
so basically
victimized group.
they're like, oh, we're gonna like help these oppressed people, but what they're happening is that they're just oppressing one group of people which they thought was have been the oppressors. And it's like it I think it's kind of like there's a lot of bitterness going around, and a lot of you know and like I don't know, how is it in Indonesia? Is there like anything like that? Or I'm sure the situation is different, but the fact that there is a populist movement just tells me there's something going on that's very similar. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Wealth inequalities in Indonesia is also an issue, but um, let me bring us to another dark place here. In one of and because I also want to actually, you wrote about this also. Um, in America, there's a lot of identity politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oppressed and the oppressors, females and males, black and white,
Yeah, those things.
those things. There is also a strong sense of identity politics with the electorate of Anis Baswedan. The
Okay.
Wait, he's number one. Yeah, he's number one. Number one is yeah. So one is Anis, two is Prabowo, three is Ganjar. I mean,
Okay,
in
gotcha.
terms of the voting number,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
yeah.
polls or anything. So he's the there's a lot of accusations of a lot actually of very strong conservatism and favorism towards Muslims, which fine, fine. But there's also a strong anti-Christian and anti-Chinese rhetoric within
Yeah.
his speeches and debates and conversations. So there's a lot of identity politics there. With it's that same old
Mm-hmm.
story. Um, um, we non-Chinese have been oppressed by the Chinese because the Chinese have so much wealth. They control so much. By the way, statistically, it's not even. I just read something. It's not even that accurate. It's like a story that's been made up. In America, it's like okay, let's go there. In America, it's
Yeah.
like the Jews, right? The Jews, they control all the wealth, and somehow they're criminals somehow because they're seen as oppressors somehow because of the amount of wealth that they control.
Yeah, it's a very complicated stories. I think it's what you call it's a tangent, but yeah. So with the Chinese, so is that like, is it actually true, like the statistics, or like?
I just read something that it's not, at least it's not as true as actually the former vice president also echoed Anis Basudan's rhetoric that the Chinese have been controlling so much wealth and then blah blah blah. But one study that I read is at least it's not as true as people think, as they think it is. And an an important point that I'm trying to bring up here on identity politics, even if it's true,
Mhm.
does that justify hatred towards
Yeah,
one
that's, yeah,
particular group? Um,
yeah.
like politics isn't really, I think, tell me what you think about my definition of politics, this layman's definition of politics. It's all just about how can we actually get along with each other. That's politics in a very
Well,
crude
it's,
nutshell.
yeah, it's one way to put it crudely, And I'd like to think like politics is like, I don't know, it's like basically it means public, right? I think in terms of like the
The
word, right,
etymology.
comes from, yeah, polis, right? So polis means city,
Okay,
like in
okay.
Greek. So it's like basically it's the affairs of the city, right? Or
Hmm.
I guess the country,
Interesting.
the
Yeah, yeah,
public
yeah.
affairs, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, in a sense, it's about getting along, but it's also about like, okay, how can we like help each other, right? And it gets complicated once you have a lot of people, Like, cause I think with like the ancient Greeks, it's like, okay, only a few amount of people can vote or have like a say on like how the city should be governed. But now we have a democracy and we have like everyone has a vote, one man, one vote. And I think that's why you have all this chaos, I guess, for like
Right.
word.
The Greeks, I'm sure you know this, the Greeks actually invented democracy, didn't they?
Yep, that's
And it's interesting that you said that it can actually lead to chaos. I suppose hmm, this can be a very, very complicated conversation. Yeah, I suppose if you have a lot of ignorant, angry individuals who want a figure to fight for them, I guess that's where populism comes from. There's no
yep.
populism without democracy. So I guess the democracy has its own dark. Um, it can be dark. It can have riots come along because of some sort of democracy gone wrong, I suppose.
Yep.
What do you think about the so we talk about Prabowo, Anis. Well, we just talked about the bad parts so far. Do you have any thoughts on Ganjar, by the way?
I mean, you know, I not really, to be
No,
honest.
really?
It's like,
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
because he's like, he's like the third guy, right? And he seems to be like, okay, he seems like to be like the what you call the alternative to like Prabo in some sense. We don't like the Islamist stance, and he seems to be like the more like I think I said in my article, he's gonna be the more intellectual of the three. But I also heard that he doesn't have much of a chance. So he's like, maybe if you vote for him, you're throwing away your vote. So I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay, yeah. Um, Let me say a couple of things there. Ganjar, you talked about well, first of all, the strong Islamist stance thing, something that you probably didn't know. Early 2023, there was supposed to be an under 20 World Cup in Bali, Indonesia, and at the last
I heard about
moment,
that.
yeah, at the last moment it was canceled, and one of the there was a few prominent politicians who really didn't want the
Yeah, Israel
yeah
qualified, right?
yeah because Israel qualified, and one of the prominent politicians who stepped up and said they didn't want the World Cup to be held there was actually Ganjar. He was like one of the two. I can't remember who the other one is, but he was one of the two uh, politicians who really didn't want Israel
They want Israel to be there.
to enter Indonesian
Okay.
soil.
Mhm.
So there is also a level of,
Interesting.
I wouldn't call that extremism, but there's it's kind of inappropriate somewhat to really go to really permeate religious politics to sports for
Mhm.
teenagers. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, you're interfering with under 20 World Cups because of the of religious politics. So there is a level
I
of
mean,
I wouldn't call it extremism. Probably it's extremism. I don't know. These things are
is
uh,
it really just because it's like I would assume it's like the whole Israel versus Palestine thing, right?
well, exactly. I mean,
Because like
Indonesia has always been pro Palestine.
pro Palestine, right?
I mean,
And
yeah, and Ganjar Pranowo, we call him a Sukarnoist. He
mm,
follows the philosophies of President Sukarno, which has always believed that Israel is a what do you call it? Invader, an
okay.
invading nation.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's where the religious politics kind of come in. You don't think it's a religious politics?
It could be because
You think it's geopolitical or something?
it could be a geopolitical. Part of it is definitely religion. There's a religious aspect,
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, it's like, Muslims, mostly Muslims, like the Palestinians, but there are also like Christians there in Palestine too. So it
that's
can be a
true.
little more complicated than that. And part of it is that, like in the World Cup, right, the last World Cup, like Russia was actually kicked out because of politics.
Right.
Excuse me. So Russia was kicked out because of politics, right? So it is kind of like, you maybe it's because I'm an Indonesian. Okay, so Russia gets kicked out because of politics, but when Israel have political issues too, we're the one getting kicked out. Like, hang on a minute, that's like,
Mm,
maybe, you know. So there's a bit of a hypocrisy going on with FIFA. It's like, okay, so Russia invading Ukraine is fine, but Israel occupying Palestinian territories, excuse me, kicking out Russia because invading Ukraine is fine, but kicking out Israel because they're occupying Palestinian territories, that's not fine. It's like there's a hypocrisy to that.
right, right. Um, Let me just probably enlighten you and other people that may be listening of the dynamics of the voting um, system here. So there's three candidates, and you have to have a majority vote. You have to have 50% plus one vote in order to win. Um,
Hmm.
so if and let me tell you the statistics, the latest one from one of the articles. You'll probably be amused by this. So currently, according to Roy Morgan website, and the Economist magazine also has pretty much the same statistics here. So right, let me see. So Prabowo has about 43% of the votes so far. By the way, I don't know how they calculate these things. These are like opinion polls, something like that, right?
Yeah, the polling can be a little,
Yeah, of course.
but
This is
but that's all we have, so we
that's
kind
all
of
you
have
have.
to.
Yeah, you can't predict the future. 43. Ganjar is 30 and Anis is 24. Does that even add up
So
to 30,
that's, I guess,
54? Yeah,
43
yeah.
first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say so.
So Prabowo has a big lead. 43. Number two is Ganjar with 30, and then Anis with 24%. Now, the thing is, Prabowo has 43, which is not 50, right? So
No.
what's most likely going to happen is there's going to be two rounds. In the first round,
Oh, okay,
let's say
gotcha.
Prabowo is going to be 40, 43. Let's use that poll as an example. And so Anis would be eliminated in the first round, and then
Mhm.
who's left is Prabowo and Ganjar. And so I think, statistically speaking, it's most likely the case that Prabowo is going to win. Third time lucky, but it's
Okay.
gonna I think it's gonna be two rounds, so it's gonna stretch until I think June or something like that. If
All right,
if
gotcha.
uh if uh if things go as planned. Um,
Mhm.
by the way, why did you say that Ganjar is the academic? I was just curious about your perception on him.
Oh, I mean, at least because I listen to this from like, it's like I'm not like, it's not like I'm like reading like articles or whatever. It's like I'm getting this from like what you call like, people around me, like my family and friends, and they're like, okay, so Ganjar seems to be like, and by academic, I mean it's like not the populist kind of guy. I guess that's what I'm looking for. But I mean, it's like, because there's a lot of populist like rhetoric seems to be like more, I guess, lowbrow, right? So he seems to be more like, the more highbrow, the more establishment kind of guy,
Oh, I
right?
think the word you're looking for is like a technocrat. Um,
I mean,
uh,
maybe. So if I, hold on, let me look it up. Like, hold on. Yeah, see, because Ganjar is like his alliance is called Alliance of Parties. Like, I don't know what they call it in Indonesian. It's like, so he seems to be like, see, Anis has changed, right? And then like Prabowo is like advanced Indonesia. And Ganjar's like alliance of parties. So he seems to be like the establishment
mm,
something.
yeah. When you say academic, do you mean intellectual?
Yeah, intellectual. I guess intellectuals. That seems to be the right word.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's very interesting because I actually think the intellectual, the academic is by far, it's actually Anis Baswedan instead of Ganjar. Um, Anis is
Oh, okay.
he
Like that.
is he he's very, very well educated. He's American educated actually. So he did his
Hmm.
bachelor's in UGM Gajah Mada in Yogyakarta. He did
Hmm.
his master's in University of Maryland, which I think you're an alma mater of U Maryland, right?
Yeah, I guess we.
Yeah, I
uh,
guess great minds come from the same place.
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't know if I want to be associated with them, but okay.
right, right. So he did his master's in University of Maryland in international security and economic policy, and then he did his PhD in political science from the University of Northern Illinois. I mean,
Hmm.
this guy, if you want to talk about an academic, a political science academic, I think he really fits the the bill here. And
Yeah.
also he used to be a rector, which is a chancellor. I don't know what you say, how you say it in English, like the number one person in a university, a private university in Jakarta. And also he was
Hmm.
the former Minister of Education of Indonesia for a few years under Joko Widodo. Minister of Education before he became before or after he became the governor of Jakarta. I mean, okay, so master's degree, PhD in political science, economics, Minister of Education. I mean, I think he's really the academic one, the intellectual one.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's all this, it's kind of funny. He's so internationally well versed. He understands international politics, but he has this very isolationist, pro-Muslim, blah 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 agenda, which is kind of a. I thought he would be more global in his mindset, more pluralistic, and less.
I'm,
Yeah. What do you think? Is
I
that a
mean, I
contradiction?
understand, sort of understand that mentality because I live, since I live in America too, right? So I've studied in America, and it is really tempting to be like, I want nothing to do with America anymore,
Oh,
right?
really? Right.
Yeah, it's like the temptation is really there, to be honest. I'm not saying that's how I think, but it's like, yeah, I kind of get it. I don't want
Right.
anything to do with the world, well, with this, neoliberal world.
Right. That's interesting actually. I think I actually feel the same way when I was in Australia for about 7 years. Um, for some reason, I just couldn't blend myself with. Well, I'll say it, I can't blend myself with the whites, just as you can't. It's just like a different dimension to me. I'm not. I just couldn't do it. So yeah, probably his international exposure actually pushed him to be more local. I guess there's no contradiction there.
Yeah.
Just
Or it's
as
like it's a paradox, right? But it's like, okay, that would make sense.
yeah, yeah. And but just to give some background on Ganjar, so he did a bachelor's in law in UGM
Okay.
also. He did his master's degree in political science in the University of Indonesia, and then he spent pretty much 20 years, 10 years in Congress of Indonesia. We call it MPR, and
Okay.
then another 10 years as the governor of Central Java. He entered the gubernatorial race in 2013 and won as the governor. Um, uh, yeah, none of them are dummies. Let's say everyone is well
Mhm.
educated. Prabowo, have you seen him speak English in speech in conferences,
I don't
things
think
like?
I've seen him speak English.
Oh, you'd be surprised how articulate and Hitler like he is, bro.
Oh, oh, I mean, I've like heard him like speaking in like, it's like it's not English, but I've seen the videos of him talking. Like, yeah, man, he's like
In Indonesian
very like
or English?
charismatic. Indonesian. He's very charismatic, and I guess like that's why I guess that's why a lot of there were some people who don't like him. It's like because like I think he kind of owned up to his like what he did and like it was like as a general, right? Did some bad things and like that was me in the past, and then like a lot of people like, yeah, we're willing to forgive him, but there's like people like, who's like, man, this is cynical kind of thing. It's like cynical politics. So, man,
Very, very interesting thing that you just point out. What's your feelings on his background?
I mean, it's like I said, maybe because I'm like, young, like 30s, 31. So it's like, I don't, so it was kind of before my time, right? Like, it's like,
Right.
was it in Timor, right? When like he also killed some students elsewhere. I
In the
don't
ni- in
remember
the late 90s
it's
Asian
in Jakarta, right? So
yeah,
like
Asian
the
financial
tsunami.
crisis. Allegedly, I don't want to get shot here.
Okay.
Right.
All right, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, my take is like it is the past. It is a while ago. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
we do need to like, let it go, I guess. And it's like, well, was like, it was a chaotic time, right? Like, what would you do if you were in this situation? And I was like, so I don't really want to be like, oh, I'm so much
Mm.
better than this guy. It's like, have you been there?
Mm. It's so interesting. It's fascinating. Yeah, yeah. To get your perspective on this. Um, did you know that he was before he became defense minister of Indonesia, he was formerly banned to entering the United States because of
Oh,
this. He was basically blacklisted because of um, human rights violations and allegations of torturing people in Timor and the protesters against President Suharto, his father-in-law, basically. So
yeah.
there's definitely a lot of serious international criminal stains, criminal allegations there. But I suppose you're right. It's kind of a little bit surprising to me how much it doesn't bother you. But that's politics,
I
you know.
mean, I mean, it's like it's not that it doesn't bother me. It's that, well, it's like a lot of people who's like what you call it's politics, so it's always a dirty business. It's like,
Yeah, that's true.
and you don't think like Anis and Ganja, do they have skeletons in their closet? You know, I don't know. It's
I'm sure they do, but it probably doesn't involve torture, though.
yeah. I mean, like who knows?
Yeah, right, right. In terms of the running mate, you also talked about the the running mate of Prabowo, being the son of
Gibran.
Jokowi. He's
Mhm.
36.
Yep.
What the hell do you make of that?
I mean, I don't. I mean, like, might as well be like, politics is about like what you call. It is a family business, right? I mean, like I don't like even in Indonesia, right? There's like, okay, who's like the head of like PDI, right? It's Sukarno's daughter,
Daughter,
right?
yeah,
So it's like because like again in America you have the Kennedys, the Bushes,
the
the
Clintons.
Clintons, yeah, and all these things like and like part of me is like, okay, maybe it's definitely nepotism. Let's be clear about that. But, it's like okay. On the other hand, it's like it is maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's
Hmm.
like if it's a family business, you really want to see it succeed. In a sense. I don't know. I'm still like figuring it out. Like this.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that argument was made by what was Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, because she was being interviewed and the journalist was asking her, what the hell? Why is there so much nepotism here? Pretty much you, Eric, and what's the other guy's name? Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, uh,
Like
Donald
his
Jr., Don Jr.
other thing,
Yeah.
okay, done.
All the three of you are basically automatically directors of Trump organization, blah, blah, blah. Isn't this like nepotism? Aren't you guys ashamed? And then Ivanka, being the very well educated woman that she is, she was like, if this was a bread shop, you would call me like honorable or something for continuing my
Mm,
father's business, right? But just
that's true.
because
That's
we're a
true.
billionaire real estate family, somehow there's a target on our back saying this nepotism. So nepotism sometimes only applies to the privileged. And if you're talking about someone who's downtrodden, barely making by, somehow it's not nepotism. It's such a fascinating thing here that's going on. You
Mhm.
follow
Yeah.
with regards to American politics, do you follow any of actually you probably know more about that than I do. I actually follow it also, but what's your thoughts on what's happening in the US now?
I mean, I think it's clear that Trump's gonna be the nominee, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's the same old story. The Republican establishment really doesn't want him there. It's like that's why first they tried to get, it's like there's like DeSantis. They tried to get DeSantis to run against him, but that didn't work out. And it's like there's like to be back, and I think he's just there. I don't think he really expected to win, like at least maybe not now. So I think those two, like what you call, they endorsed Trump,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Oh,
they're out of the
did
way. Like
DeSantis endorse Trump also?
I think I think he might have actually. I'm not sure about that yet, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I think Vivek definitely did.
Vivek definitely, yeah, he definitely did.
But yeah. Anyways, like I'm thinking more like yes, there's like Nikki Haley, who's like
She's still
I
in
think
there.
no, in my opinion, right? Nobody likes her. I don't think anybody likes her except like the establishment Republican types. So like I think she's just there simply because the GOP heads doesn't want Trump to be the nominee, and that's why she's still there. And it's just like ridiculous, but whatever. And and of course the Democrat is like, well, of course, gonna be Joe Biden, like so. I think it's gonna be Trump versus Biden 2.0, and
Enlighten me on who the other candidates are from the Democratic Party. I don't even know. Isn't it like John F. Kennedy Jr. and then
oh yeah,
some?
that's the only one I know that really matters. And I think that's simply because like JF, is it JFK or RF?
Oh,
That's
sorry,
RFK
RFK,
Jr.
Robert
RFK
Kennedy.
Jr.
Yeah, RFK,
And like,
RFK.
and I think the thing is that he has a bit of a sort of conservative kick to his belief, and by that I mean like he he was known like as the guy who opposed like the vaccine mandates back in like when COVID was like really craziest, because like everyone was kind of frustrated by like the whole COVID thing, right? And with the Republican, you see it. There's like a lot of like power into it, but the Democrats at some point they seem to be all in behind it, except for RFK Jr., who's like a major voice against the whole forcing the vaccines on the people, and and I think that's why it kind of became popular, not just with like the what you call, not just with like sort of like the whole what you call non-establishment left or what's left of them, but also like some like old school Republican who's like more what you call they're kind of tired of the party to go of the Republicans kind of and and of course there's also like well RFK is kind of like he also believed that his was it his uncle like JFK like the original John F.
Yeah,
Kennedy that he believed that JFK was murdered.
assassinated by the CIA.
Yeah, was assassinated. No, I mean assassin. He was murdered. Like I mean, obviously JFK was assassinated, but I believe that he was assassinated by the FBI or
Oh,
something like that.
and his father too.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, there's sort of like the family drama. Like, hey, maybe we can finally figure it out. Like, what really happened to the Kennedys. And like, who better to do it than like, the nephew and the
And nephew.
son of the two Kennedys who mysteriously died. So there's some drama.
It's kind of like no wonder he's so skeptical of the vaccines.
Yep.
Not only the vaccines of anything. I mean, some people have called him. conspiracy theorists again, a conspiracy theorist against the government, and it's no wonder if he actually believes that um, the
Yeah, I
government
mean,
has something involved. I mean, with the
that's
murder
like
of
this.
your uncle and your father, don't be surprised if he doesn't want the government to inject stuff in
I
everyone's
know, right?
bodies. Yeah.
The guys who may have killed my dad, may have killed my uncle, and now I'm just gonna, oh yeah, you can like put this whatever foreign substance into my body, like millions of people do. Like, you kidding me?
Now, one do you think the lack of nominees in the lack of serious nominees in the Democratic Party is because the establishment actually quote unquote likes Joe Biden? I mean, they're just using him as a puppet.
I mean,
Have you ever
I
seen that
think,
from that perspective? Do you know what I
I
mean?
think,
Yeah.
I think he's definitely like if you see Joe Biden, he's not exactly very, he's not very lucid. He's not lucid, like I think it's like sometimes he just says something out of turn. And it's like to be honest, I think he is a puppet. And
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
so yeah, so it's basically like the powers that be, if they want to like get any agenda through, yeah, who else should be in other than Biden? And to be fair, he is the incumbent, right? So like politically, like historically speaking, the incumbent has always been, you know, has always done well with the electorate because like, yeah, even if they don't like the situation, hey, at least it's like somebody I know, right? Instead of some unknown factor. So people don't really vote against incumbents unless one, they're either like, oh, it's the opposing party, or two, things are really bad that I want change. And while things are bad, it's not that bad. I mean, it is kind of bad, but it's so maybe there will be. I mean, it's bad enough that they're probably gonna vote for Trump, but not so bad that they're gonna put in another candidate for the Democrats. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Biden is definitely a professional politician. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe for one moment that, I mean, not to be brazen or anything. Yeah, I think the establishment is using him for their own agendas. Doesn't seem like
Mm-hmm.
he has anything strong. Uh, in I mean, he's been in Congress and been in the political system for I don't know how many years, like 40 or something. So it's
Yeah.
like he's the perfect guy if
Yeah.
you want to use him for your agendas. I mean,
Yep.
he knows. I mean, you can't use Trump for anything. He'll just or Elon Musk, for
Yeah.
example, people who are just unable to be bought by the system, who are completely outside of the system. Let's say,
Yeah, it's like not even outside. It's not even that. It's like they have like this sort of personality where like, you can't really tell them what to do. That's with Trump. That's with Elon. It's like is that like what you call yeah the men yeah like it's like that's the personality. It's like can't tell these guys what to do. It's like you know, which is like I don't think that's the case with Biden, right? Since he has been like vice president, he's been congressman. So, you can't tell him what to do. And especially since he's like
he's
at
the
that
perfect
age
guy
where,
to tell what to do. He's like,
yeah.
yeah,
And again, I'm not even getting into his mental faculties, which may be like compromised. Like, who knows?
yeah. It's also kind of crazy um, what's going on with this. Yeah, you also made this joke in your article. You can do worse with a president's son. You posted a link of Hunter.
Hunter Biden.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah. Please, please.
that's the reason why the Republicans kind of zero in on him because like, yeah, if you want to try to like go after Biden, like, okay, you show his son. It's like not exactly flattering.
Yeah, and Biden, he's been through a lot, hasn't he, in his life? I mean, no matter how much people insult him, you can't really deny that he's been through a lot. I mean, his son, uh, one of his sons died on battle, on combat, and
Oh,
then
right.
his other son is on drugs the whole time, and then I think his wife, he's had like multiple divorces, ugly divorces, things like that.
Oh, I
Uh,
didn't know that. I didn't
yeah, his family life is kind of just chaotic. Um, Ironically, the only thing stable is his political career.
know.
Hmm, that's something to think about. So definitely, you think Trump is going to win?
I mean, assuming it's a fair election, like again, I don't want to be that guy, but I think Trump should have won the first time around. But there's
Mhm.
like some weird shenanigans. Like,
Okay, so
so the
you think
second
that?
time, who's to say there's not gonna be another one of those? I don't see why there shouldn't be, because I don't think the system, like, they have really put that much of a change. I think they made things tighter. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but I just don't see any reason why they couldn't do it again, other than that, hey, they don't want to like make the whole thing crumbling by making the people angry. I don't know.
Where does this right bend of yours come from? I really sense a strong right wing political bend. Is it more
Yeah,
towards hatred, not well, maybe disgust towards the left, or
I mean, to be honest, I'm more of a like social, like conservative. Like I'm just like, I'm a Christian, right?
yeah?
And a Catholic. So basically it's me taking my faith seriously. So a lot of the stance, things like, well, abortion, the LGBT stuff, that's basically kind of that's basically where I come from. So in the economic stuff and the other politics stuff, that's where it came out of, right? That's why I'm very strongly right wing. And yes, there is a bit of aspect of like, it's not hatred, because I don't want to hate on people, but it's more like disgust, right? When you see like, because I see it, I live in Maryland, live in Washington D.C. You do see these kinds of things, and it's like, you know, I don't want that. I don't want that anywhere. Not in Indonesia, not in America.
Well,
And
in
that's
Indonesia, it's
kind of.
not as bad as in the United States. I mean, I wrote something about this a little while ago while I was writing about Vivek. You know Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a conservative. Obviously, he's voting
Mhm,
endorsing Trump, and he had these 10 rules. Do you remember
mhm.
or not? Like these ten campaign rules. And rule number two was well, rule number one, I think it was like uh, a belief in God is important, something like that. His conservative number one belief. And rule number two is there are only two genders. And I was writing, it's so funny what the United States has become. This this economic powerhouse, this supposedly number one country in
Mhm.
the world, the best universities, the most intellects, the richest, is arguing about uh, oh, are you a woman or are you a man? How do you identify? Am I offending you if I call you a man? I mean,
What's your
it's
pronouns, right?
what's your pronouns? It's so childish. This need to be. I think it comes from this progressivism comes from Gen Z maybe, or it doesn't.
Ah,
We're millennials. It's not from us. I mean, it's from these silly self-congratulatory narcissistic thing of comes from the younger generation, right?
I mean, maybe it might be, but it's like, who's like promoting this kind of thing? It's like, could be like, I don't know, it comes from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of rubbish to me. So in that sense, I actually do agree with the fact that we need more conservatism, and if it comes
Mhm.
from Trump,
Mhm.
I'll take it. Definitely, it hasn't gone this wokeism, this progressivism definitely hasn't gone that crazy in Indonesia simply because we live in a majority Muslim nation. You simply
Mhm.
can't do that shit over here. I mean, you'll get yeah. So it definitely hasn't gone that bad, but I certainly hope Indonesia doesn't go, whoever the president is. I certainly hope we don't become more Americanized and become more Westernized, um, and go that
Yeah, because
direction because that's an ugly, ugly direction.
because I do see like I think one political like in well I really like Gerindra's like Prabowo's party. Gerindra is like at the one of the what you call platform is like yeah we're against LGBT, which is
Mm.
I guess it should be part of course for Indonesia, but at least it's like okay at least I'm glad that they say it. It's like so good because I think there is something like that, right? Unfortunately. Like, is there anything like that in Indonesia?
What you mean the movement, the LGBT?
Yeah, yeah,
It's definitely underground, and it's
mm,
definitely. I mean, in Jakarta, it's in the club scenes, in the the high echelons of society.
yeah.
Um,
That's hmm
people buy people. I mean, money buys everything, right?
yeah,
Including the freedom to engage in all of those things. If you have access to a high-end club, things like that, those types of behaviors exist, but not in like in America. It's like it's permeated throughout, like beside the street, using pronouns and how you greet people. It's really permeated throughout society. But in Indonesia, because of the religion, it has really, like, thank God it has, it doesn't permeate that much.
and yeah, because like in America, that used to be the way. It's like just 20, 30 years ago. Heck, even Obama said that was on record saying he believed marriage should be between a man and a woman when he
But
was
it
running for
changed.
president. Yeah, he changed, or
Isn't that
maybe he doesn't
crazy?
believe it. But
Yeah.
in any case, it's like things can go way faster than you think. So like, it's like I don't think we should be like what you call like I don't think Indonesia should be like, well, these people are like underground. They can't do us any harm. Like, now you'll be surprised how fast things are moving. Is
You've
so
experienced it firsthand, right? So probably I shouldn't. Yeah, I shouldn't underestimate them. This movement. Yeah.
here's the thing: they are favored by America. Because like I don't know if this happened because there's like cases where like America like wave like rainbow flag in their embassies. It's like I think was it in Africa or I don't remember.
Oh,
But
really?
there was like also a case where like you know where America threatened to withhold aid from Uganda because they have a like an
Ah,
anti-LGBT law. So
yeah.
it's like they are
African nations don't play that at all, right? At
yeah
all.
no
No way, sir. So
but yeah
yeah. So they got, basically it's a sanction, isn't it? Like a political sanction based because
yeah
you're
it's
not
it's
like
like
us. That's
it's
crazy. I
it's
haven't heard of that before.
it's like the weapon. It's weaponized basically. It's like the
Yeah,
weapon
yeah.
used by like the American Empire to bend countries to their will. Like I think there's like I remember someone saying this. Like one way you know that the country is an American colony is if they legalize gay marriage. That's how you know if a country has been colonized by America, if they've legalized gay marriage.
Right, right. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I think we've dug a very, very deep hole for ourselves here, and we probably should dig that much deeper.
Yeah,
Very
right.
interesting conversation. Do you want to have anything, add anything, or?
Well, I think that's all. That's all for me, unless you have anything else to ask.
No, no. Let's see what happens. Maybe next time in a few weeks or something. Let's see what actually happens in the election. If it
All
goes to
right. Yeah.
round
That.
two,
Yeah.
I
Sure.
think it's gonna go to round two. Maybe that'll be an interesting short conversation. Um,
All right. Sounds good.
all right, thanks as always, Michael.
All
See
right.
you
Good
around.
talking
See
to
you
you,
around.
Alvin.
Yeah, yeah. See you.